We are on page 3 of the final exam review, and we're going to go over number 13 and 14. And number 13, we need to find the coordinates of the midpoint of a segment having endpoints a 0, 0 and d -2, -8. So there's a couple methods you could use to solve this problem, but we're trying to find the midpoint. And the midpoint formula is something that you will be given as a formula on the final exam. So I'm just going to write that down here. And I tend to prefer the midpoint formula just because it's pretty simple to label our points and just substitute in our values. So our two endpoints I'm going to label with x1, y1, x2, y2. I'll plug these values into my midpoint formula. Okay, so x1 plus x2 will be on the top, divided by 2. When I do that, that will be the x coordinate of the midpoint. And then y1 plus y2, so 0 plus -8, and then divided by 2. I'm going to go ahead and figure out what this is. I'm going to simplify this. So add before you divide. 0 plus -2 is -2, and -2 divided by 2 is -1. 0 plus -8 is -8, and -8 divided by 2 is -4. So our midpoint is located at the point -1, -4. Now there's another way that some people like to do this. They like to use a graph instead. So what I've done is I've taken those 2 points and I've graphed them. And so we're wondering where is the midpoint, and what you could do is you could count on the graph until you get to the middle. So I could go up 1, down 1, up 1, down 1, up 1, down 1, up 1, down 1. And so I know, okay, that point there, which is -1, -4 is the midpoint. That's not as exact as using the midpoint formula. Sometimes you might have a little bit of error in there, but this works most of the time if you prefer to use the graph. All right, number 14 says find the coordinates of the other endpoint of the segment RT if the midpoint of the segment is -1, 1, and the endpoint R is -10, 5. So this is one where I do suggest using a graph. So I went ahead and I graphed endpoint R here and the midpoint. And I'm trying to find the other endpoint T. Now, if M is in the middle, I know this is going to extend somewhere, and endpoint T is going to be somewhere in this area. We're trying to figure out where it's going to be. Now, since M is in the middle, what we can do is we can count from R to M, and then count that same distance and direction from M to find endpoint T. So for example, what I mean by this is I'm going to start at point R, and I'm going to count down 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I'm going to count right 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. Now, if I start at M and I count that same direction down and right, I will end up at point T, the other endpoint. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So where I ended right here, this would be where endpoint T would have to be. So that M was in the middle. Okay, and now we just need the coordinates of that point. So if I look at my graph, the x coordinate is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then -3. Okay. So the coordinates of my other endpoint, T, are 7, -3.